Sobriety for me has very little to do with quitting drugs or not doing drugs. I could care less about that. What sobriety does have a lot to do with, though, is the person that I became in the process of getting sober. And that person is someone that I care a lot about. A lot of people, when we coach them, or even myself when I first quit using substances, are focused on how do I quit the drug? What's life like once I quit drugs? Is it going to be better for me? Is it going to be worse for me? And the more and more I've been in this coaching space and the longer that I've actually been sober from substances, I've realized that it's not about that. But what it's actually about is the process that you go through to obtain sobriety. And I'm going to give you a different type of example. Let's talk about weight loss or someone who wants to get a six-pack. People say, oh, I want to get a six-pack. I want to be in better shape. How do I do that? What's it like to have a six-pack? What's it like to weigh less? And the question that you really got to be asking is, what is the person that you have to become to get to that place in life, to have a six-pack, to lose weight? You have to exercise discipline. You have to be able to say no in circumstances of peer pressure. You have to be able to influence instead of consume. You have to exercise willpower and grit and determination. You have to exercise each of those things in order to work out each day and make sure you're getting to the gym. You have to be willing to suffer a little bit because especially the older you get, the harder it is to say no to the junk food, the harder it is to lose weight, the harder it is for you to work out and lift those weights each day because your body becomes more and more sore. Sobriety in and of itself is a discipline, it's a practice. And there's a lot of traits that you can pick up along the way when you practice the discipline of sobriety. So what type of person is the person that's sober? If you take myself, the practice of sobriety turned me into someone who was determined. I was determined to quit drugs. And in doing so, I learned a lot about determination and I learned a lot about grit. I had knocked myself down, I had relapsed, I had lapsed more times than I could count, more times than I could even imagine to tell you about on this channel. But eventually I got it right. And in the process of getting knocked down over and over again, and in the process of getting back up, I developed a lot of grit. So I have determination, I have grit. Once I quit the drugs and I continually said no to the substances on a repetitive basis, I learned discipline. I started to practice willpower, and I started to exercise willpower on a regular basis. Now, not only did I learn those things by quitting drugs, but as I always talk about on my channel, the only cure for one obsession is a new obsession. So it wasn't so much about putting down the drugs, but it was more about what is the person, what are the traits that I can gain from putting down the drugs? What areas of my life psychologically and physically can I strengthen by quitting smoking weed, quitting watching porn, quitting nicotine, doing things that were challenging, right? Quitting those substances for me, no question, they were a challenge. It was hard. I had to go through withdrawal. I had to say no to certain social situations and certain peers of mine. It was outright challenging for me. And I can't say it was something that I was super excited about doing when I wanted to do it. But that's what changed me as a person, taking on that task. I know a lot of people who follow my channel do follow channels like, your motivational speakers, David Goggins, Dr. Andrew Huberman, Andrew Tate, this and that. And you'll find that a lot of people on those channels talk about doing something that's hard and how it can change you. But not only doing something that's hard, but doing something that's hard that you don't particularly find joy in. I didn't necessarily find joy in the withdrawals, although I celebrated the withdrawal symptoms because I knew withdrawal was nothing more than the death of my addiction. I didn't find that pleasurable. I didn't find joy in it, not the same way that I find pleasure in exercising, not the same way that I find pleasure in even working. So that for me was a real challenge. It was one of the first really hard things in my life that I was doing that involved suffering that I didn't particularly want to do. And the person it made me a person that's rooted in determination, a person that's rooted in exercising willpower, not only to do things that I don't particularly want to do, but also in order to say no to things that I shouldn't be doing. A person that is rooted in grit. I've knocked myself down more times than anyone else could ever knock me down, and I've gotten back up more times than anyone else that I could ever imagine from personally destroying myself year in and year out for a period of nine years of my life throughout addiction. And this is ultimately why I don't care about sobriety or quitting drugs per se. You're not going to see me walking around wearing a shirt that celebrates my recovery, that celebrates my sobriety. I don't even remember my quit date. What I care about is the person that I became through the practice of the discipline of sobriety. And I think that's something that you could potentially get excited about. If I had looked back and I was still struggling with addiction, this is something that I could have gotten excited about when it came to quitting, because a lot of quitting, there's not a lot of excitement. In fact, it kind of sucks. If you're quitting, it means you're probably in a bad place. It means you're probably lacking motivation. It means you're probably lacking discipline to some extent in your life, at least in this category or realm of life. And it sucks. It sucks when you first start. But the idea of, hey, I can use this process to transform myself into a better version of myself, that to me is interesting. That to me is exciting. And that is what, in fact, keeps me sober. What it really is, guys, is a process of self-development, self-discipline, self-improvement, whatever you want to call it. That's what my ongoing practice of sobriety actually is. I don't view myself these days as someone who is quote-unquote sober. In fact, you could argue I'm very much addicted to certain things in life. And I have no problem with that when it comes to being addicted to taking care of my family, addicted to pursuing my career and building new businesses like our supplement products, addicted to the coaching, addicted to making YouTube videos, addicted to building a better version of myself mentally and physically. I'm addicted to a lot of things. So I wouldn't necessarily call myself quote-unquote sober. You're not going to see me walking around wearing a shirt that has my recovery date on it. You're not going to hear me at a party talking about how I don't drink, how I don't smoke, how I don't do those things. But what you are going to see is the version of the person that I have become through the practice of sobriety. You're going to see that in my reputation and my businesses. You're going to see that in the way I treat my family and in the way my family respects me and in the way I respect them. You're going to see that in how I practice my faith. You're going to see that in how I take care of myself mentally and physically. You're going to see all of the things that the practice of sobriety has done for me, but off of YouTube, you're not going to hear about it because I don't particularly care about that. But I care a lot about maintaining and taking care of the person that it's made me today. And if you're in a place where you're struggling with addiction, and if you're having a hard time finding some excitement behind getting sober, hopefully this is it for you. Hopefully this is a reason to put down the beer, put down the weed, put down the cigarettes, put down the vape, and start to make a change, because it can literally transform you into a different person. Go back to my very first YouTube videos. You'll see what's changed throughout this process. It's pretty incredible, and you guys got to watch it IRL in real life. If you want to learn more about our coaching programs, if you want to learn more about our supplements to help people quit, to help with the cravings, to help with the withdrawal symptoms, it's a chewing gum. Check out the pinned comment. We got a bunch of free PDFs on psychosis, Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome, the first steps of quitting. We have a $13 book, Compulsive Thoughts and Impulsive Actions, now out for purchase. It's $13. 100-page book, 100-page workbook. Or if you don't want to do any of that, just follow me into the next video so I can give you some more encouragement and support when it comes to this journey of quitting nicotine, alcohol, weed, pornography, THC, whatever it may be. All right, guys.